travel. Set out and head for pastures new. Life tastes richer when you've rode worn feet. No water that stagnates is fit to drink, for only that which flows is truly sweet.
This is the story of one of the greatest journeys of all time. In 1325, shortly after the end of the Crusades, a young Moroccan Muslim called Ibn Battutah set out on a pilgrimage to Mecca. It was to become an odyssey from one end of the known world to the other. In all, he travelled 75,000 miles, more than 3 times the distance Marco Polo covered. Along the way, he was to meet magicians, dervishes, holy men, fire-eaters, and other travellers from across 3 continents. He was by turns scholar, businessman, mystic, warrior. He was imprisoned by mad sultans, was married 10 times, and had countless concubines. And when he got home, after 29 years on the road, he wrote it all down. Nearly 700 years later, I discovered his travelogue and was blown away by it. Here was a description of a kaleidoscopic Muslim world that I could still see around me, but one that for most non-Muslims was hidden behind a veil of misunderstanding, ignorance, and even fear. From that moment, I was determined to take to the road in the footsteps of Ibn Battutah. And on this leg of the journey, from Turkey to India, I was to encounter all that is exotic, welcoming, and mystical in the world of Islam. I'm on a journey through central Turkey, 675 years behind the great medieval traveller Ibn Battutah. Ibn Battutah was a tangerine, not a fruit, but a man from Tangier in Morocco. By the time he reached Turkey in 1331, he'd already journeyed thousands of miles across North Africa, to Mecca in Arabia for the Hajj pilgrimage, to Iraq, back again for another Hajj, up to Jerusalem, and through Syria. Ahead of him lay Central Asia, India, and ultimately China. When he was travelling, Islam was at its glittering height, and about half the known world was under Islamic rule. I'm an Arabist and a traveller myself. I've lived in the Muslim world for more than half my life, and I've devoted a decade to retracing Ibn Battutah's journey. The next stop was to be the city of Konya, the spiritual heartland of Turkish Islam. Ibn Battutah was drawn to this city by one man, Mevlana, a 13th century poet and the founder of a mystical Islamic order known as the Whirling Dervishes. Mevlana's brand of Islam was a striking departure from the orthodox. He advocated direct experience of God through music and dance. To some Puritan Muslims, he remains a heretical figure. But for many, his tomb is a place of pilgrimage. I had come here to try to find today's dervish mystics. Twenty-first-century dervishes occupy an uneasy position in modern Turkey. Officially, they were outlawed in 1925 when the secular authorities deemed them too powerful.
Eyvallah.
But the government nowadays turn a blind eye to backstreet dervish orders, and I managed to get an audience with the current leader of one such group. What does it mean to be a dervish?
Derviş olmak, Hazreti Pir'in, Hazreti Mevlana'nın ifadesiyle yok olmak, nefisten arınmak, benlik ve gururu taşımamak.
He quoted a verse of Mevlana's poetry.
Gel, her ne olursan ol yine gel. Ateşperest, putperest, mecusi olsan da yine gel. Yani daha evvelki günahlara tövbe eder isen bundan bu yanaki işleyeceğin günahları da affeder zaten diye ifade eder.
To me that is an extraordinary thing to say because so many religions try to exclude, to shut out, and Mevlana is doing the opposite. He's saying, come in. Although the government puts on sanitized versions of the whirling dance for tourists, it's technically illegal for practicing dervishes to perform their rite. I was invited to watch the real thing, the Sema. Ibn Battuta tells a strange story about how Mevlana came to be divinely inspired. He wrote that one day, while he was giving a lecture, Mevlana was offered a magical sweet by a mysterious wanderer.
The holy man then abandoned his lecture and went out to follow the sweet seller. The students went out to seek him, but they could not discover where he was living. He came back to them after many years, but he had become demented and would speak only in Persian rhyming couplets, which no one could understand.
Mevlana was said to recite his poetry while whirling round a column. The position of the hands supposedly transmits God's blessings from heaven to earth, like a spiritual lightning conductor. The hats represent tombstones. The white cloaks symbolize funeral shrouds. It's all about the killing of the ego.
It works upon men's souls. Hearts are humbled, skins creep, and eyes fill with tears. Leaving Konya, we toured the eastern part of Anatolia, then journeyed westward once more.
At this stage in his journey, Ibn Battuta was interested in the mystics of Mevlana, but didn't think of joining them for a second. He was a young man on the make, looking for one thing above all others, money. And he knew how to get it, by sucking up to the nomad sultans of Anatolia. 700 years ago, a huge swathe of Asia was ruled by immensely rich nomads, who would move their entire courts up into the hills for the summer months. Nowadays, the few remaining nomads of Turkey move only their flocks. Nevzed is one of the last descendants of the sultans Ibn Battuta stayed with when he travelled through Anatolia. He offered to take us to his family's encampment. So do you prefer to live in one place all the time, or do you prefer your life of moving?
Elinde olsun.
Zaten bunu tercih etmişim. Bunu tercih ederdim diyorum. Güzel bir meslek.
It's breathtaking. I can see why you like this. Is there a kind of downside to the life that you lead?
En fazla zorluk doğa tırmanması var.
And he and his family have to milk 600 goats every day. Ah, only fingers. All right, okay. Yeah. I really apologise to this goat. I wouldn't be in her position for anything. So only fingers. Oh, it works. Good gracious. Great thing for Ibn Battuta is that he was on this sort of nomadic gravy train on all his travels across Asia, because a lot of the rulers were either recent first-generation converts to Islam or at most second generation, and they didn't really have much contact with people like Ibn Battuta from the sort of old civilization of the Islamic world. So this Arab, well-versed in Islamic law, tips up on their doorsteps or at their tent flaps, and they say, yes, yes, welcome, come in. And he was sort of an ornament to their courts.
We arrived at the Sultan's place just after noon, and we alighted beneath the shade of walnut trees. On hearing of our arrival, the Sultan sent for us a tent made of wooden laths and covered in felt. They laid out a rug for us, and we sat down outside the tent.
This is Nevzed's father.
Şimdi eski mesela Antalya sahilde olan, tabii hesap olmadı bir zamanına göre, bir köy halkında 300 tane, 400 tane bir köy olarak çıkarlar. Lakin şimdi o şey kalmıyor. Bak, bu Karatiken köyünde bir tane bu biz var, yani bir tane. Üzümlü Dağı'nda belki bir var, iki var. Bunlar da belki yeniye yok olacak. Tamam. Yani dağlar boşalacak.
But do you think maybe that your grandsons one day will be thinking, I wish I could live like my grandfather?
Biraz da yaşantıyı daha geniş görüyor. Şehir kısmı olsun, köy kısmında olsa. Tabii ulan şurada akşam elektrik yandı mı, vay ben bu elektriğin ışığında